So when the Kindle Scribe was first announced, I was very, very excited. I think at the time I'd been looking at digital notebooks like the Remarkable and a few other options. I wanted something, at least for me, that I could read my books on and something that could eventually replace my physical notebook. So when they first announced the Kindle Scribe, it almost felt like it was perfect for me. Yeah, so when the first few reviews started coming out, I was honestly a little bit disappointed, to be honest. A lot of it seemed to think, good idea, maybe good for writing, but it was just missing a lot of key features, and overall it just sort of put me off buying it for at least another few months. It did seem like a perfect device for me at the time, but a lot of the reviews that I watched on YouTube, it just sort of put me off buying it, at least at that point in time. Now, a few months later, I decided I might as well just bite the bullet. Amazon's returns policies are pretty good, to be honest, so I thought, it mightn't be for those reviewers, it mightn't be for certain people, but I at least felt like it could be something that was good for me. And to be honest, at least now to this day, is a decision I haven't regretted at all. So the first thing I want to talk about is, it's not for everyone, to be honest, and I think that echoes back to some of those initial reviews of people. And yeah, it isn't for anyone. I know it's hardly a big surprise if you've watched any reviews of it, especially when it was first announced and first released in the first couple of weeks. And yeah, there's other alternatives out there. So if you already have like an iPad, you might be comfortable with that. I mean, you can already read on it. You can probably take notes on it. You might need to spend another couple £100 to get another device. There's things like the Remarkable and the Remarkable 2. There's lots of other options out there that might be a better fit for you, but at least for me, it just worked. Just having something that was already synced up with my Kindle Library that I could read my Kindle books on, and it did enough for me on the note-taking side. I can create separate notebooks, I can organize it, and the actual writing experience I found was as close to pen and paper that I found compared to like writing on a tablet or something like that. It was good enough for me, and it's at least something that I go to it more than my actual physical notebooks. Next thing I wanted just to touch on was, at least for now, it's starting to replace a lot of my physical notebooks. So if you just hang on a second. So this is just a couple. I end up piling them up and up and up and up. And I have like different notebooks for work, for taking notes, for just general day-to-day stuff, or maybe just drafting down ideas for blog posts, starting to actually write things down, maybe some initial novel ideas and scrapping them down like that. So I have tons and tons of notebooks that just build up over time. It actually gets really difficult to find specific things, maybe a book I've read a couple of years ago, trying to take down notes and remember things from that while rereading it is difficult to find. Whereas at least with the Kindle Scribe, first of all, easier to carry around than handfuls of notebooks, takes up less space, to be honest, as well. And that's one thing, I guess, with having kids and sort of downsizing a lot of things. A question I've seen come up again and again is comparing it to the actual handwriting experience on a physical notebook, pen to paper. Does it match that feel one-to-one? Well, I would say no, not really. It's close enough, and it's close enough for me that I enjoy writing on it. It feels pretty close to actually writing on pen and paper. It's not going to be the same as getting like a nice fountain pen with a nice notebook and writing it down. It's not going to match that experience exactly, but it's good enough, and at least good enough for me. So the next little area I wanted to talk about, which was a big one for me, is the reading experience. So when I first got it, at least compared to the Paperwhite, it's not as portable. I would say initially it wasn't as comfortable to read on, just with it being larger. But as someone, to be honest, with just not the greatest eyesight in the world, and having just a bigger display, over the last few months, I I've enjoyed reading on it a lot more than what I originally had thought. Yeah, and just having my entire digital Kindle library on the Scribe on a bigger screen that honestly now I don't really find any less comfortable than when I was reading on the Paperwhite. I think it's just something I've got used to, and I ultimately do prefer reading on a slightly larger screen. And it's, to me anyway, I've been reading more over the last few months than I have in previous years. And just again, having that device that can do both, have a good reading experience and good for taking notes, and just having it on one device for me is what makes it great. The other benefit as well, which has sort of both a benefit and a negative factor around the software side, is being able just to take notes while you're reading. So in the past, if I was either reading a physical book or on the Paperwhite in the past, I'd have a notebook to one side and just scribble down notes. If it was a physical notebook, I'd occasionally scribble around the edges of it. Now, you can't actually write directly onto a book you're reading on the Kindle, at least not at the minute from a software perspective, but they do allow you to highlight certain bits, add a sticky note and write it on, which I find is, to be honest, good enough, at least at this stage, for just taking quick notes around a book. You can handwrite them down and then you can go back to reading, and again, you're just doing this all in one device, and I find it's perfectly acceptable for me. Might not be for everyone. Some people might prefer actually just writing on the margins on a physical book, and at the minute it can't do that. But if you don't mind just adding in a little sticky note as such, scribbling it down, and you're okay with that, I still think that's a great experience. I guess be open and honest about some of the drawbacks I've found, at least from using it over the last, I think, 6 months or so. So I guess one of the main ones is portability. So I find it's not as portable as something like a Paperwhite. So I'm bringing it with me to work, or if I'm going away on a trip or away on a holiday, it isn't as easy just to slip into a suitcase or slip into your bag as something as small as a Paperwhite, just with it being a bit larger. Now, to be honest, I haven't found it that big of a problem overall, but it just isn't as portable, just naturally with it being bigger. The other one I find is a little bit annoying that's become more of a problem recently is around the pen tips themselves. I don't write a lot. I'd say I use it every day, taking quick notes, but in terms of how much I write, it's not tons, and even then the tips only last probably a couple weeks most, from, I would say, semi-regular writing. So if you're writing a lot, I can imagine those tips would just not last very long, at least what I've found so far with them. I mean, that might be something they can improve further down the line, but the pen tips themselves don't last very long. I've bought some replacement ones, and to be honest, they are quite expensive, so I can see that cost adding up over time, just based on the fact that I'm getting through so many of them already. Another drawback, which is sort of touched upon in the last bit, is just not being able to write directly on books. Not a game changer for me personally, but it just would be nice if you had the option to scribble around a book, make quick notes on it. It would just make that whole experience more seamless than having to highlight something, add in a sticky note, write it in. It slightly disrupts the reading experience. Whereas if you have an idea while you're reading something, you want to quickly jot it down, it would be nicer if you could actually write directly on the books themselves. The next one is price. So yeah, if you compare it obviously to a physical notebook and a pen, it's going to be a much more expensive. I think it comes down to, you don't really need a device like this. You don't need the latest phone, the latest car, the latest tech. That's something you don't need. So it just comes down to, yes, I think compared to other similar devices in the market, like the Remarkable 2, it is competitively priced. But it just comes down to, this is maybe a device more that you might want over actually need. Because something like a pen and paper is obviously going to be more cheaper. Still works just as well. Same with physical books, they work just as well as the digital ones. It just comes down to convenience, and if it is something you're using a lot and get value from, then I do believe it's worthwhile. Yeah, I just want to really end off, I think with most things, especially in and around tech, that this really is a device you don't need. And in fact, I'd probably recommend that it's something you do not buy. But to be honest, it's a device I really enjoy. I use it every day, and as someone who is both trying to read more and to just have an easier way to take notes and have them all together in that one device. It's just been perfect for me. But again, it's not for everyone. I guess this was just to share my at least initial experience around using the Kindle Scribe over the last few months. If it is something maybe you were considering but the reviews put you off, I'd say maybe try it if it is something you can afford, and maybe like me, you do already have a good library on Kindle and you want a device that's both for reading and taking notes just all in one place, and to maybe not have as many physical notebooks around, save some space. I still think it is worth considering, and it has improved on the software side at least since its launch. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of the Kindle Scribe, and catch you in the next one.